What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 8 of All You Can Talk Sports. I'm your host, Soupy Campbell. That's your other host, Mario. There's gonna be a little short video, but we gonna make the best out of it. Mario, how you doing today, buddy?
I'm doing good, bro. I'm doing good. What about you? What about you?
I'm doing great, man. I just got a nice big plate of Stouffer's mac and cheese. I'm telling you, bro, it's the best mac and cheese you can get out there.
Hey, look, Crafts is better. Stop faking.
The
Stop
cheese
lying to
isn't the
people.
cheese isn't as thick in the Kraft as it is in the Stouffer's, bro.
I don't care. Okay, that was in your childhood. Like, what's wrong with you?
But I love how we went from debating about sports to debating about the best mac and cheese. That's funny. All right. Anyway, no fooling around. We got some World Series going on today. Game 6. The Dodgers have a chance to take this series. The Rays have a chance to force a game 7. I think that's what's gonna happen. But what about you, Mario? What do you think is gonna happen here? What's your
I
predictions?
think I think that out of the next two games that happen, I think that the Rays have a better chance to win this game than the next game. And so the reason why I say that is because you got Blake Snell, Cy Young winner. I think he won two Cy Youngs, right? I think he's a
One.
two-time Cy Young.
Nah, he's
One.
one. Yeah.
All right, he's a Cy Young winner. And you're going up against Gonsolin, who might be the worst pitcher on this squad. Not saying he's bad, but compared to everybody else that is on this pitching squad, this might be the Rays' time to actually beat him. So I'm gonna say this: for in order for the Rays to actually win this game, they gotta they gotta take advantage of Gonsolin as early as they can and as long as they can. Because if you're gonna let Gonsolin have some type of game, or if you're gonna let Gonsolin stay in this game with Blake Snell for as long as you can, it's not gonna work out for the Rays.
Well, I'll say this, and I agree with you. I'll say this because this is something they failed to do with Game 2 transitioning into Game 3. We it, Blake Snow and Tony Gonsolin pitched Game 2, and Walker Buehler and Charlie Morton pitched Game 3. In my eyes, I think that's what's going to end up happening, without a doubt. That's usually how it goes. That said, if the Rays win Game 6, their lineup has to show up. Their pitching needs to show up. It's the same thing on the Dodgers. Pitching needs to show up. Offense needs to show up, and same thing on both sides. Defense needs to show up. Well, I'll say this: if the Rays win this game, they need to have a huge shift in momentum because they probably have to face Walker Buehler in Game 6. That is if they win Game 6. They win Game 6. They're most likely going to face Walker Buehler in Game 7, which is a winner take
Right.
all game. They need to have an upshift in momentum because they had no answers to Walker Buehler last time. And you know what? They win Game 6. They need to have an answer to clinch Game 7. That is if they win Game 6. With that said, I think this is going to be a pretty interesting game.
I agree, but one thing I want to say is, for Gonsolin, in order for him to actually have a good day, I think it's all about keeping batters cold, like Randy Rosarina. If I said that right, did I?
Rosarina, yeah, you were close.
Rosarina. I'm sorry. Brandon
Mhm.
Lowe, Joey Weddle, Kevin Kiermaier, Austin Meadows. I think it's mostly I'm gonna say G-Man Choi. I think mostly Randy is. I think he's probably in my opinion. I think he's their biggest weapon. I think Randy is the biggest weapon on that Tampa Bay Rays team. To be honest with you,
Absolutely. I
um,
think he's just the best player in the entire series. Period.
right? He's breaking records or he's tying records that Derek Jeter has made inside a postseason. Yeah, I think that's the biggest. I think if you can get him, if you can keep him cold, and if you can keep, I say the second best is to me, in my opinion, is it might be maybe Kevin Kiermaier. I don't know if you agree with that, but like I'm gonna say top three for the Rays is Randy Kiermaier and um I'm sorry, Randy Kiermaier and Brandon Lowe. I think those are the top three batters. And if somehow Gonsolin can keep them cold, I think the Dodgers can end up winning a World Series today. On the other hand, though, for the Rays, I mean, what do I gotta say? That the whole team's stacked. But I mean, again, it all comes down to your leaders. If you can get Mookie Betts cold, if you can shut down Bellinger today, if you can shut down Justin Turner, because Justin Turner is a guy who has a past and a history of having big games when people really haven't been stepping up, and that's a big one too. So I think those three batters are the ones that Blake Snell is going to have to keep cold for the rest of this game. So it's all going to come down to which pitcher is going to play better, which how cold these batters are going to be. And if the Dodgers want to win the World Series today, then they got to get Randy out of this. That's their top guy. If the Braves are going to go to a game 7 and force that game 7, they got to get to Mookie and Cody Bellinger.
And they got to get to Walker Buehler too. That's
Right.
that's a
Well,
that's a guy they need to get to the most.
that's the thing. Is it possible that is it possible that Kershaw could come back in?
No, no,
No.
he pitched 6 innings in Game 5. He's going to go on 2 days rest. It's just not possible. It's something I wouldn't
Gotcha.
do anyway.
Yeah, that's something I wouldn't do neither. I was just asking because with the Red Sox, they had Chris Sale throw the first one, and then he ended up
Well,
ended up
yeah.
throwing the last pitch.
Well, the thing with that was he started Game 1, but that was it. He didn't start another game there, so that's a different story.
Yeah,
I
right.
think there's a certain limit to where, because I know in high school baseball and college baseball too, the pitch limit is 110, and
Right.
I don't think the innings matter. I think it's the pitches that matter.
Right.
I pitched 8 innings in a high school game once.
Right. And this World Series I think is a lot more crucial than the one that they were with against the Red Sox, because the Red Sox basically had them in
Yeah,
that World Series.
the Red Sox were just
Dodgers don't
truly
have,
stacked.
as much as I think the Dodgers are going to win today. The Dodgers don't have that. I will say this: the reason why I think they're going to win is because I think the Dodgers are going to take Gonsolin out early, and I think if they take him out early, I think, to be honest, in my opinion, I think Dustin May is going to show up today. I think Dustin May might be the player of the game. I think Dustin May is going to come in. I think he's going to do great relief pitching. They're going to leave it either to Kenley or Urias to end this. And I think the Dodgers pitching is just going to be better than the Rays pitching. I think they're going to. I'm not saying they're going to get Blake Snell out of there quickly. I think for like the first 5 or 6 innings, that this is really going to be a defensive game until you get Blake Snell out. I think that's what it's going to come down to. So
We'll say this. I'm not saying that you're wrong, but I'm not saying that you're right either. I think Dave Roberts needs to be, like you said, if he's probably gonna get taken out of the game, who knows? We don't know that yet. I think if he does take him out of the game, then that's just if. Excuse me. And that's just if. I think he needs to be a little more conservative with that bullpen, because sometimes, and it's been proven a few times. Justin May stayed in a couple innings. I can forget what game it was. He gave up a few runs through 2 or 3. Did the same thing with Kenley Jansen in Game 5. Oh no, excuse me, not Game 5, Game 4. And he left them in. He gave up a couple runs, and one of those runs was the game tying. Was it not game tying? Game ending run. I think Dave Roberts needs to be very conservative with it. Not very conservative, but conservative with his bullpen, and just be careful, really.
see, all right. So I agree with you. And if it was like a game 7, I wouldn't, because at game 7, it's
That
like
Game 7 is crucial, yeah.
yeah, it's win or go home. So you're gonna put out all the stops.
But this
But
one,
I'll say,
they have it's not a winner lose. It's not a winner takes all. They have to. If they
right.
win this, it's theirs.
Well, I'll say this though. I think the Dodgers are gonna want to end this now, then go to a game 7 and test it with 2-star pitchers. Most likely, it's gonna be Walker Bueller and
Charlie Morton.
Charlie Morton. I assume it was gonna be Charlie Morton, but I just want to hear you say it. So I don't think they want to test that. Even though as good as Walker Bueller is, Charlie Morton's also a good pitcher. I
And
don't
he
think
has
they want
World
to
Series
test that. So
experience.
what I think they're gonna do is right. So what I think they're gonna do is I think what they're gonna do is I think they're gonna keep Gonsolin in very quickly, maybe go 1 or 2 innings. I'd be surprised if Gonsolin went 3 innings this game today. They get Gonsolin out of there. You put have Dustin May pitch a few innings. Then Urias and I think Kenley will end up closing it. And you're right, he's got to be very careful. But I think that the Dodgers, as crucial as this is for the Rays, I think the Dodgers also know that this game right here is very crucial in order for them to win.
Right.
This is the game that they're gonna, because the last thing you want to hear the Dodgers did was let Blake Snell have a day on them, and then they end up losing in Game 7. It's something
Right.
you don't want to hear them doing. And then for some reason Walker Bueller doesn't end up performing in Game 7, then his legacy gets affected just like Kershaw's did, and that's something you don't want them to do. So what I think is, I think they're going to get Gonsolin in there. I think Gonsolin might hold his own for like 2 innings. They'll take him out, put Dustin May in, and I think Dustin May, Urias, and Kenley Jensen are gonna hold the ground. But in my opinion, I think Dustin May is going to have the best game. Is going to be the player of the game this game, and I think the Dodgers are going to walk out of it with a game 6. And then when they walk out of there with a game 6, somebody's wearing a jersey.
Whatever you say, Mario. All right. Anyway, game 6 of the World Series, Rays at Dodgers tonight, 8:08 p.m. Eastern time. Going to be a good
Fox.
game on Fox. Yes, on Fox. It's going to be a great game. Anyway, got to move on now. Got to move on to the results. Monday Night Football. Mario, you said the Rams would win and they didn't. I said the Bears would win and they didn't. Final score 24-10. Rams had their number. Well, the Rams had the Bears number. Mario, what do you think? Let me ask you this. What did the Rams do right and what did the Bears do wrong?
Well, I'll start with the Rams. I'll start with the good. So, Jared Goff did what he was supposed to do. He went 23 for 33, had 219 yards and 2 touchdowns. So, you know what? We got to give some credit to Jared Goff, especially a guy who was throwing 5 interceptions against the Bears without having a touchdown. Like I said, I previewed that last episode, how he was. I previewed how that was a record, how he had the most interceptions without a touchdown thrown against the Bears than any other team in the Super Bowl era. And now that streak is ended. He had 2 touchdowns. He didn't throw a pick, so that's really good by Jared Goff. Malcolm Brown, even though Darrell Henderson was the starter, Malcolm Brown I think was a better running back that day. He went 10 rushes, 57 yards. That's a 5.7 average of a carry. He had a rushing touchdown, something that Darrell Henderson didn't have. So I think he was the better running back coming in. So I think Malcolm Brown really picking up the pace at running back opposed to what Darrell Henderson was doing. I think that really helped. There wasn't really a lot of no wide receivers really no wide receivers really popped out, but Josh Reynolds, 4 receptions, 52 yards and a touchdown. Then you have Gerald Everett, he had a touchdown. And then you go to the Rams defense, and the Rams defense really held their own, and they did a really good job. So I think for the Rams defense, Jalen Ramsey had a pick. Taylor Rapp, which a couple years ago I was a huge fan of Taylor Rapp. He came out of, I believe, Washington. I think he came out of Washington, and I was a huge fan. He was a hard hitter. He could pick off a ball, and it was only a matter of time till Taylor Rapp was going to be a big part of this Rams defense, and I think he's a very big part of it. So Taylor Rapp, he had an interception. Leonard Floyd, a former Bear, he had 2 sacks against his former team, so hey, credit to him. Justin Hollins had a sack. Aaron Donald and Greg Gaines combined for a half a sack. And personally, I think if anybody's to credit on this Rams team, it's probably Jared Goff in that defense. But mostly, I'm gonna give the credit to the defense. I think the defense did great by holding the Bears down, which I don't think was that hard, considering the fact that the Bears were one of the worst offenses in the league.
Right.
You can also give, if somebody said they'd rather give more credit to Jared Goff because he did what he did, because he had a decent game against one of the best defenses. I can't argue that, but I'm gonna just go with the Rams because they've been that defense has been a little questionable a few weeks because, and the reason why, even though the third defense, they've had some games where they've lost to the Niners or they've lost to certain teams they weren't supposed to be losing to, and this is a big statement win for the Rams, especially the fact that they're in this division. But personally, I think the defense showed up. I think they showed out. Jared Goff showed up. He did his thing. He had a nice night. Malcolm Brown picked up the running game that Darrell Henderson, I guess, wasn't really there for that day, and that's what the Rams did good. Now, what the Bears did bad. Now, going to what the Bears did bad, I'm gonna go back to it, and I told you this stat Friday. David Montgomery has had only one game where he's had over 65 rushing yards. That's unacceptable.
Absolutely.
In my opinion, in my opinion, out of 32 starting running backs, David Montgomery might be the worst. And it's unacceptable. It really is. You cannot play like this as a running back. Like I said, your running game needs to be there. A lot of the best teams in the league, besides maybe, well, even the Chiefs now at this point with Hilaire, but a lot of teams, you need a really good running back, What makes the Saints such a threat is Alvin Kamara, how he's such a great running back. What makes the Vikings, not this year, but what makes the Vikings a big threat on the Vikings, and probably their best offensive player is Dalvin Cook, Derrick Henry, he's a big threat on the Titans. That's why the Titans are such a big.
CMC's a big threat on the
Christian
Panthers when he's
McCaffrey,
healthy.
even Mike Davis, even Mike Davis is
Mike
playing really
Davis.
good for them. So and we
Who else?
Nick Chubb with the Browns. Then you got Kareem Hunt with the Browns.
Kareem
So
Hunt.
like David Montgomery, I get Tariq Cohen's injured, but David Montgomery has not been stepping up. I
Yeah, it's
wouldn't be
absolutely.
honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't even the Bears, like I don't know who their backup is at running back. So like I can't say if they're gonna get rid of them or not. But David
I'll say this.
Montgomery's got to step it up.
I'll say this, and I agree. 14 attempts with only 48 yards, no touchdowns. That's horrible. There's just nothing good coming out of that. There's so much more room for improvement. You know,
Right.
and as for Nick Foles, 28 for 40, 261 yards, no touchdowns, 2 interceptions. The yards isn't that bad, but everything else is. I mean the completion isn't bad. It could use some improvement, but it wasn't as bad. It could have been a lot worse. Two
Yeah.
interceptions
It's
though, that's
mostly the
not
two interceptions. Yeah,
two
you got to protect
interceptions
that
and
ball.
no touchdowns. That's a problem. That's a problem, especially with Nick Foles. Nick Foles is known to be coming in clutch in situations like this, and he just didn't, and that's a problem. This
Right.
is something that he that's the clutches that he got from the Eagles, and ever since he got the Eagles, he hasn't been that same Nick Foles. And I'm not saying that he's bad. Don't get me wrong. I still think he's still a quality quarterback, but I think he needs to step up his game too.
I agree. One now I'm not gonna leave without giving like people because Bears had a couple good guys on this
Yeah,
team who played good. Like Allen Robinson had 4 catches, 70 yards. It's not really like a big game, but he did he did decent. Cole Kmet had 2 catches for 45 yards. Darnell Mooney had 3 receptions for 40 yards. So I mean, like that's okay games for them.
Robert Quinn had a forced fumble. So did Khalil Mack.
Yeah, yep. Eddie Jackson led the team with 9 total tackles. Barkevius Mingo had 2 tackles for loss, and Mario Edwards had 2 tackles for loss. So those guys, I think, did really good on that defense. And the Bears' defense, as much as the score shows, they weren't too bad. But I think the Bears' defense need to make a little bit of an extra effort in order to beat this Rams team.
I really think this was a statement win by the Rams after their loss to, I think it was the 49ers last week. Was it? Yeah, it was the 49ers. Yeah, it was. I really think that the Rams needed this win, and I think this was a true statement win from the Rams saying that, hey, my division rival may have beaten me, but we're still competitive. And I gotta be honest with you, man, that NFC West division is the best division in the entire league.
I
It's the
agree.
exact opposite of the NFC East. It's what the NFC East should be, and they're not. And the NFC West is absolutely stacked. The Seahawks, the Cardinals are finally starting to get that rhythm, and the same rhythm that they should have had last year, and they didn't. They're starting to get that together. The 49ers are starting to come back after that brutal start to the season, and the Rams are starting to come back into form after losing that magic last season. And I think this is a huge statement win from the Rams. I think it's going to make them more competitive moving forward, and it's going to make that division in general more scarier because every single team in that division, the NFC West, is a playoff contender right now. I think that's the only. I could be wrong, but I think that's the only division where every single one of their teams are actually contending for playoffs, and they're all going to make it. I'm going to tell you that right now. They're all going to make it. As
Well,
for the
they all
Bears,
can't. Well, I'll say this. Listen, not all of them can make it, and the reason why,
really,
no, they can't.
they
I'm pretty
can't.
sure they can't.
Well,
No,
they
because
extended the playoffs this year, so it's a possibility
hang on, let me think.
because they
Oh
announced
no,
before the
they might, they
yeah
might, because
yeah
you got
because
one division leader and you got 3 wild card spots, so all 4 of them could possibly make it, and that would be something to see. But like,
I I mean it could be possible because the Saints are kind of
it's
starting to break
possible.
down. So are the Panthers. The Panthers are kind of breaking down a little bit too.
Yeah,
Um,
it's possible, but like,
as for the Bears, I think this is something they need to worry about. Their quarter. I'm not again. I'm not saying Nick Foles is a bad quarterback, but I think their quarterback situation is a little bit rough around the edges. We all know Mitch Trubisky wasn't looking good. The only thing that looks good on Mitch Trubisky is his face. Someone needs to tell him that his face is the only thing that looks good. His performance don't look that damn good. And I'm not. And no discredit to Nick Foles either, but he's not. He's not being, like I said before. He's not that quality quarterback that you would expect him to be. And I think that's something they need to work on moving forward. Their offense needs a lot of work. Uh, Offensively, someone needs to step up, and defensively, they're one of the best in the league without a doubt. I don't think there's anything wrong with their defense. I think it's all offense. Especially when you're competing in the NFC North with the Packers, who are coming back after that brutal NFC Championship loss last year. I think they need to keep up that pace, and this
yeah,
and
and the
this
one,
loss is just not acceptable.
Yeah, and the one thing I'll say is for both, like, we're not talking about the NFC East, but we'll go to the NFC West. The biggest thing in the NFC West right now is consistency. And even though the Rams had a couple good, even though the Rams had a good game here, they got to do this consistently. They have to play. Their defense has to play like this consistently. Jared Goff has to do what he needs to do to win the game consistently. You can't win a good game, make a statement game like this against the Bears, and then lose the next week against whoever. You have to do this
Absolutely.
consistently, and that's something that, like, and I'm gonna be honest with you. Besides the Seahawks, and I know the Seahawks lost against the Cardinals. I know that happened, but besides the but I'm not counting the Seahawks there because the Seahawks could have easily won that game. Besides the Seahawks, the other three teams, the Cardinals, the Niners, and the Rams, both of them in my opinion, are lacking a little bit of consistency.
I agree.
And the Cardinals are starting to gain it. The Niners are starting to gain it. After this, the Rams are getting a little bit of it. So it's all about which team will be the most consistent coming in.
And
And
especially with the Seahawks having to face the 49ers. The 49ers are coming off a very huge momentum gain. And after that brutal loss to the Cardinals, they're facing a division rival yet again. They need to step up that game.
right, for the NFC East, it's more crucial because one team's making it sadly, and the other three are not. So consistency is everything in the NFC East.
Absolutely. And that's something that they
But
struggle with.
yeah, but we're not gonna get too in depth with the NFC East. It's not a topic
As
for
much as I
today.
want
So
to
go.
rip the as much as I want to rip the Cowboys a new one, I already did that yesterday. So
All right, give us All right, give us the
all
next
right,
topic, Nate.
we got our next topic. Everson Griffen has been traded to the Lions. Mario, what do you think about this? I know the Lions are a very struggling team right now. I think defensively, in my opinion, they're very struggling. I think the team overall is struggling. But do you think this is a good addition to the Lions?
Well, I'll start by saying, like, because Everson Griffin has been part of my team. He used to be on my he was on my team for a good 9 years, and Everson Griffin was a player I absolutely loved. He was a big leader in the Vikings locker room. And when he went to the Cowboys, I wasn't really upset because it was the Cowboys. It wasn't like he went to a division rival. So today, when I found out that, like, he got traded to the Lions, and I don't think that's his fault. Like, it's not really his fault. It's not like he decided, like, I want to go to the Lions. You
That's
go
something the
where
Cowboys wanted to do.
yeah, you go where they trade you to. Like, it's not like Stephon Diggs said I wanted to go to Buffalo Bills. It's just where they trade you. If he was a free agent, if they let him go and he decided I'm gonna sign with the Lions, then that's a different story. But he got traded there, so I can't really be upset with him. But with that Cowboys defense, he wasn't really performing. And maybe it was because it was a bad defense, but I don't think the Lions are any better. And s-
Absolutely.
and so with his stats on the Cowboys, he had 20 total tackles and he had 2.5 sacks. He didn't have any forced fumbles, no interceptions, which is very rare for a defensive end, but still. Um, as for the other question, if I think that he's going to be a good addition to the Lions, he might be. He might be, but he cannot be this Everson Griffin that we've been seeing the past 7 weeks. 7 weeks. He's got to be better than just 20 tackles and 2.5 sacks. We're not asking him to get 17, 18 sacks. You know what I'm saying? We're not asking him to have another 15 sack season because I think he's going past his prime at this point. And I don't think he can do what he did with the Vikings. Even with the Vikings, he was slowly declining as Daniil Hunter was ascending. But
We're
with the
simply just
Lions not,
asking you gotta step up
yeah,
at
but with
defense
the
running.
Lions not being able to, but the reason why it's so important that he does well against the Lions is with the Lions not having a Pro Bowl like defensive lineman on the other. So for instance, like, let me give you an example. When he was with the Vikings, Daniil Hunter was rising. Daniil Hunter was turning in, he was getting 15 sack seasons. He was turning into or 11 sack seasons. He was basically the guy who was the quickest and youngest player to reach 50 sacks. So he was an ascending star, Daniil Hunter. Then you go to the Cowboys, and with that supposed to be insane defense in quotes because they're not really that good. They had Dexter Lawrence on the other side, and Dexter Lawrence was turning into a better defensive lineman than Everson Griffin. On the Lions, I don't think they really have they don't have that star defensive lineman. So it's really important that Everson Griffin turns into that star defensive lineman because it's what the Lions actually need. Now I'm not now as a Vikings fan, this is not what I'd be saying. I'd be saying, well, I hope he doesn't have a good year. But as an analyst, as a sports analyzing the team itself, the Lions, that's what they need. They need Everson Griffen to be that number one defensive lineman. They need him to get 8 sacks, 10 sacks this season in order for them to start producing.
Right. And I think this is, that's something crucial for him to do. Like I said before, he needs to step up, especially with the Lions who are, struggling just like the Cowboys are. I think the Lions are in a little bit of a better situation, even though they're still struggling. Um, and yeah, that's really what it all comes down to. I think he really needs to step up his game. He's past his prime, so it's a little understandable. But you're still playing in the National Football League. You got to step up and do your job. And I wish
Right.
him the best. I wish him the best in Detroit. I know Detroit isn't the best of teams to go to, but nonetheless, I do wish him the best.
Yeah, and the other thing is when I look at Everson Griffen, and I watched him for 9 years in Minnesota, and when I seen him, he reminded me of every single time he played, he reminded me of like another John Randall, and that's a very big thing. John Randall is actually the first. In case people don't know, John Randall is the first defensive lineman to be to have his moves recorded in a Madden game. So
Wait, really?
he was like one of yeah. So when you see like the video game and they got the suit on to like when they have like that green suit on that controls and they do their motions so they can put it
Oh
into the
yeah,
game.
yeah, yeah,
John Randall was one of the first defensive linemen to do that in a Madden game. And I saw the video and I seen like the types of moves he was doing because they would show him on the Madden. He'd do the bull rush, the jab where he like jabbed the guy's arm. Everson Griffen plays exactly like that. So, but that's not the point. The point is Everson Griffen, he's such an intelligent defensive lineman. He's a veteran of the game. And maybe it's just his body. I don't know if his body's like wearing out on him or nothing like that, but he needs to be the Everson Griffen that he was in Minnesota 2-3 years ago with Detroit in order for Detroit to have a chance of doing great things. If
absolutely.
not, then it's just a wasted trade. And the Cowboys got a 6th conditional pick out of it. So really, if Everson starts playing good, then it falls onto the Cowboys.
Yeah,
Unless that 6th round pick ends up turning into a great player. But But if he ends up playing bad, then the trade really, in my opinion, if Everson Griffen is playing like this with the Lions, then the trade is basically worthless to each
I
team
agree.
because Everson didn't perform, and all you did was get a 6th round pick out of it. And if that 6th round pick doesn't perform, then you really didn't get nothing out of it
It's
either.
it's basically win-win lose-lose. Because if Everson Griffin plays well and then that 6 round pick plays well, that's a win-win situation. But if it's the opposite, it's a
I
lose-lose.
think, but I think the Lions will end up winning this trade. I think Everson Griffen is going to have a better season with the Lions this year than he did with the Cowboys, and only time will tell.
See, here's why I agree with you. It's because when you play with it's just like the coach or the head coaching job with the Cowboys. When you play for the Cowboys, you're playing for America's team. That's supposedly America's team. With that said, there's a lot of pressure on you. The Cowboys are meant
Right.
to be this super team. They're meant to be this dynasty, and they haven't necessarily proven that these last few years. And that's where all the pressure falls on. And I think he's gonna have a better time in with the Lions, given that the Lions aren't pressured to be this super team like the Cowboys.
Right.
Anything you want to
Right.
add to that?
No, not really. The reason why I think Everson Griffin will have a good year mainly is because they don't have that second defensive lineman. They
Yeah.
don't have that second star defensive lineman. So in my opinion, he's kind of like, I don't want to say forced to have a good year, but he is. But the pressure is all on him to have a good year because that's the only thing they have on that defensive line. That defensive line, him and I think Mike Daniels. But other than that, and I don't even know if Mike Daniels is still there, but other than that, there's really nothing on that defensive line. So it's up to Everson's pick up the pace and become Everson Griffin again that I know he can be.
Absolutely, man. Hey, before we get to our final topic of the night, let's take a break real quick. We'll be right back. All right, we are back. We got our final topic of the day. Like I said, this one was a little bit of a short episode today, but we made the best out of what we could. Dez Bryant is on the Ravens practice squad. Now, I don't know really much what to say about this, but Mario, what are you gonna say?
Well, I mean, first, it's kind of surprising he's on the practice squad. I mean, I thought he would have been an active roster kind of guy. I thought he would have made his debut. Maybe somewhere later on during like maybe somewhere later on during the season they'll push him up. But this is a good chance for him to teach a lot of young wide receivers a lot of different things, a lot of things about the game, maybe some mistakes that he's made that he can teach the rookies not or the young players not to make. And I don't think it's a bad idea. It just kind of surprised me a little bit that he's on the practice squad, not the active roster. But
I was gonna say like even like as a secondary, it's kind of surprising that it's not even that or like a third stringer or whatever.
yeah,
I'll say this because I agree, and you got that offense is explosive on the Ravens. Leading the way, Lamar Jackson. You got J.K. Dobbins, Marquise Brown, Mark Ingram. Um, so it's really tough to keep him on that. I mean, actually, it's not that tough to keep him on the active roster. It's just tough to make him in the starter because those are the four players leading the way, and it's tough. I was more thinking that he was gonna be like a backup or like a third stringer or something like that. But I
agree.
definitely think this is his chance. Like you said, this is his chance to prove to not prove to teach the younger guys. This is what you should be doing. This is what you should not be doing. Teach them the mistakes he's made because he wasn't. He didn't really have the best of attitudes when he was playing with the Cowboys. I mean, he was pretty cocky, never really backed it up most of the time. So I think, well, he did, but like sometimes he didn't, and that's sometimes an issue. And I think he should just tell the young kids, don't do what I do, learn from my mistakes, and that's really what he can do moving forward. And I think he's going to be a great teacher to the younger ones.
I think personally, I think he's better off on the active roster, and the reason why I think he's better off on the active roster is because if you look at it, just adds another weapon for Lamar Jackson. And if Dez Bryant could play the way he played a couple of years ago, which I'm not sure how if he can play the same way, he's gonna have to prove that to us when he starts playing. But it just adds another offensive weapon for Lamar Jackson in that Ravens offense. It just makes them that serious of a threat. And so I think him on the practice squad, I mean, it surprised me. It does help the younger guys. Maybe they want to they want to bring somebody up. But but other than that, I would like to see him in an actual game. I want to see him produce really well for the Ravens. The Ravens have a chance to do something really good. They're a Super Bowl contending team, and if Dez Bryant can become some type of offensive threat, it just makes him that more dangerous.
I agree. I agree. So yeah, that's really all I got to say about that. So you said we have three topics left. What's
Yeah,
those?
well, we got two. Well, after that one, we got two. We got it depends what you want to start with. So I mean, all right. So I'll go with this. So recently, we're gonna move on to UFC. Jon Jones, he slammed Khabib fans because Khabib has surpassed Jon Jones on the pound for pound list in the UFC, and Jon Jones is upset because he feels like he deserves to be number one pound for pound over Khabib throughout the stuff that he's been doing in the UFC. And so I want to ask you, Nate, not who do you think really deserves to be pound for pound number one, Khabib or Jon Jones?
Well, Habib. I mean, it says it. It says it in the stat sheet that he's the better. That he statistically he was the better pound for pound man. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jon Jones is definitely top five in the UFC, without a doubt, or maybe top 10 depending on how you see it. But you know, the stats are the stats. That's a proven fact. He surpassed Khabib surpassed Jon Jones in the pound for pound style, like he just said, and stats kind of prove that he's the better pound for pound man, given that he surpassed him. And I mean, don't get me wrong, I can get his frustration because he also went on the record and he said this. He said, "I'm talking to you all Khabib fans out there. 15 world titles to your guys four, and you guys are really talking about who's the best fighter ever. You guys are joking, right? 15-4. Are you guys kidding me? Yeah, I get where his frustration is coming from. And by the way, that was per Sports Center. I mean, don't get me wrong. Jon Jones is definitely one of the better. No, not better. I say best. It's been it's been a long day, but he's definitely one of the best UFC fighters to do it. And I mean, as for the pound for pound, I feel like the stats just say otherwise.
Yeah, if you hear noise, sorry, it's my roommate. But
Oh,
let me go
I
on
didn't
my.
hear
Okay, good. So But I'll say this: I disagree with you. I think Jon Jones, and the reason why I think Jon Jones. Well, here's what I'll say about this. I'll say if you want to talk about pound for pound greatest of all time, Jon Jones beats him easily. You look at if I can name him off the top of my head. I'm gonna try. Um, Shogun Rua, Lionel Machida, Quentin Rampage Jackson, Rashad Evans, Vitor Belfort, Chael Sonnen, Daniel Cormier twice. Um, Trying to think. If you want to go, I know there's so many that he's beat. There's so many Hall of Famers that he has beaten, and it is unbelievable. Glover Teixeira, that's another one I forgot. Um, Alexander Gustafsson, he's beaten probably a good 8 Hall of Famers, future UFC Hall of Famers. So if you want to go all time, and he was 17-0 against those guys, I mean 17-1 technically because he got disqualified with Stephen Bonner when he did the 12-6 elbow, which is a illegal move, but it is what it is. And Khabib is 13-0 in the UFC. The guys he's beaten is like Conor McGregor. He's beaten Michael Johnson. He's beaten Edson Barboza, Dustin Poirier, Justin Gaethje, Ali Quinta. But if you look at the resumes on who they've beaten all time, pound for pound, it's not even a discussion. Jon Jones wins. Here's the thing now, like if we talk about right now recently, what kills Jon Jones is those 2 decisions that he had. One against Thiago Santos and the other one against Jose Reyes. I think that, yeah, Jose Reyes, I think it was. No, I'm sorry, not Jose Reyes. Was it Jose Reyes? I'm sorry. It's been a long day, like you said.
Mhm.
Oh, I'm sorry, not Jose Reyes, Dominic Reyes. I'm sorry, Dominic Reyes. So he had a split decision against Dominic Reyes, and he had a unanimous decision against Thiago Santos, but it was a very close unanimous decision. And Khabib, his last 3 fights, he's tapped everybody out. And so that's probably a reason why Khabib is number 1 on that pound for pound list right now. And oh my God, Jon Jones is number 2. If you're talking about all time, it's not even a discussion.
Oh,
Jon Jones,
absolutely.
in my opinion, the greatest UFC fighter of all time.
Absolutely.
I
He's
think he's
definitely
better than
top
Khabib.
5. He's definitely top 5 in my eyes, number
If you
1.
want me to count it, I think I'm counting it as this. I don't care. He's 18-0 because that Stephen Bonner disqualified. He basically beat Stephen Bonner, but he got disqualified. So if you want to count 17-1, fine, but I'm counting it as 18-0. Khabib was 13-0 in the UFC.
I'll say this. I think and Jon Jones is without doubt greatest UFC fighter of all time. It's just like you said, there's no argument about it. There's no discussion about that. I think, especially, and it applies to all sports. I think, you know, yeah, stats, yeah, some stats you're the greatest at, but then there are some of those little particular stats that other fighters or just any athletes in general just surpass. That doesn't mean that he's not the GOAT. He still is, regardless
Right.
of that stat sheet that you mentioned.
Right. And the other argument you can make is like the Floyd Mayweather argument. It was you weren't like Floyd Mayweather before the Conor McGregor knockout that he had. He didn't knock out anybody since 2011. And a lot of people made the argument that Floyd was pound for pound because of how long he was undefeated, which is what you can make for Jon Jones, and you can even make that for Khabib. But the stats I go to are Jon Jones has finished 7 people in 10. He's finished 7 people and went the distance 10 times. Khabib has finished 7 people and went the distance 6 times. And so that might be another argument for Khabib. And that's probably the reason why, especially his recent fights, Khabib has been a lot more entertaining and he has finished guys decisively better than Jon Jones has these past 3 fights that he's had. But but the reason why, but pound for pound all time, it's Jon Jones. It's not in a discussion. And pound for pound right now, I agree that it should be Khabib. After the 3 fights that he had, and after the last 2 fights that Jon Jones had, it's not even a discussion. But I will say this though, I think Jon Jones, give it 1 or 2 fights, depending on how he does in the heavyweight division, because it concerns me about him going to the heavyweight division, especially if he faces a guy like Francis Ngannou, who I called him Mike Tyson at UFC. This dude's putting people to sleep in like 40 seconds. And if Jon Jones gets cooked, caught with a hook, he's gonna feel it. It's simple as that. You're not going up against Dustin Cormier. I mean, oh my God, I can't say no names correctly today. Daniel Cormier. You're not going up against Daniel Cormier, who's a wrestler. You're going up against Francis Ngannou. If he clips you once, you're gonna feel it. It's not even a discussion. I think if he can get past Francis Ngannou, I think he can definitely get past Stipe Miocic. And if he can get past those two, he will regain that. He will regain that pound for pound. But I think one of those two fights, whether it's Stipe or whether it's Francis Ngannou, he has to do it by knockout or like submission or finish. Because if he doesn't, he might not get that number one pound for pound.
I agree. I agree.
And the last, anything? Well, before we go to the last topic, anything else you want to add?
No, you shall take the floor now.
All right. And the last topic, the reason why I say this for last is because, I'm not going to really say nothing about this. You could talk about it, but um, the running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, Ryquell Armstead, he has been hospitalized twice for COVID, and he's going to be out for the rest of the season. The only thing I want to say, he's had some like respiratory problems when it comes to COVID. The only thing I want to say is I hope that guy gets better. If there's anything else you want to add to that, then feel free to add.
Well, like you said, I hope he gets better. That's COVID's a very serious thing. It's just anybody in general. It may kill off the older, but it affects us as younger people too. And
Right.
Me and Mario were talking about this earlier. At this point, it's not Roger Goodell's fault, and he's absolutely right. It's not. These type of things happen. However, I will say this, and I want to talk about Roger Goodell for a minute because I out of the four commissioners, Adam Silver, Rob Manfred. I forgot the name of the NHL commissioner. You can fill me in on that if you can. Hold on, let me look it up real quick.
I got you. Just continue what you're saying.
I think Gary Bettman. Gary Bettman.
That's his name?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think out of those four, and then Roger Goodell, I think Roger Goodell, when it came to this COVID protocol, I think he was the absolute most coolest one out of the three. Had he had been cool, if he had a clue what he was doing with this COVID thing, I would have said Rob Manfred, because Rob Manfred it had a very difficult time restarting the MLB, and it wasn't even just because of COVID. It was because of the MLBPA. They wanted the players to get paid full time, but the problem with that was, you're playing a 60-game season. Usually play 162. You got the money's got to go somewhere to start the season up. So I think now going back to the NFL, I think here was my problem, and this is something that it's tough because you got 32 teams, they all got to travel, and it's the same thing with the MLB. 30 teams, they got to travel, but and I don't think the NFL can do what the MLB did. They, the Eastern, Central, and Western divisions in the MLB, they just faced each other instead of going cross country and all that. I don't think the NFL can do that. So I can't say he's completely clueless, because that's a lot. There's in the NFL, unlike the MLB, in the NFL, there's 4 teams in each division, so it's tougher to work around. However, I will say this: I think Roger Goodell should have had more of a protocol issue with this. I think he should have been a little smarter with this. I truly think the man's coolest with what's going on right now. And I will say this: the players getting tested positive, it's not his fault. Like I said, that something like that happens. It happened in the other leagues. So it's not particularly his fault. But I will say this: I think he's very lacking on the protocol with the COVID in the NFL, and I think I'm gonna be honest with you. I'll be very surprised if this season actually finishes the way it is. Again, I'm not blaming fully on Roger Goodell, but I think he should have had a little bit more of a sense on what was going on.
Yeah, and the one thing I read it on ESPN when I heard, just to get a little more details on Armstead. But when I was reading it, they're talking about the NFL and like criticisms they have with the NFL. And one thing that they talked about was how the NFL just took it easy on CTE for a long time.
Mm.
Like obviously, if it had a helmet to helmet hit or contact to the head, if it was hard enough, you would have got called for it. But sometimes it just didn't call, and you see them taking more safety precautions towards that. The reason why I think CTE is different is because I think CTE, unlike COVID, has a long-lasting effect on you.
CTE is that's the one that has like behavioral effects and stuff like that. That's the
Yeah,
one that
and
people believe Antonio Brown have.
Yeah, and they connected to Aaron Hernandez, and they connected to other athletes like Chris Benoit, and they connected to um they connected to a lot of things, a lot of certain things like CTE. But that's where I think it's different. But the thing is, maybe this season will be a learning lesson for Roger Goodell, or a learning stone. So maybe he'll be better with it next season, because this is all new to everybody.
Right.
And even though as great as the NBA handled it, and as great as the NHL handled it, there were still maybe some things that they could have did better.
Absolutely.
Very little, but there was still a little bit of things that they can do better. And I think Adam Silver is going to maybe tweak that a little bit. And same thing with Gary Bettman. He might tweak that a little bit. Robert Manfredo definitely going to make some adjustments next year, if this is going to be a norm for next year as well. But but as far as this, the only thing I hope Ryquell Armstead is, I hope he makes a full recovery. It affects some people more than others. But it's
Yeah.
like, I hope he makes a full recovery, because you don't want to see a young career like that cut short due to something like COVID. And
It's seems something similar happened. Eduardo Rodriguez, one of the starting pitchers of the Red Sox, he got COVID in the beginning of the season. You remember, and he had to be out for the whole entire season because the COVID did something to his heart. I forgot exactly
right.
what it did, but
There was a guy
it's
there was
scary.
yeah, can like a Vikings have a linebacker named Cameron Smith, and he has like some type of heart disease, and he got COVID, so that really affected him too. But yeah, like this is something that Roger Goodell is gonna have to learn from. I don't think he's handled it the best neither. I mean, he's handled it. I'll say this: he's handled it somewhat decently. I mean,
He's
can
done
he
the
do
best he
better?
could.
Yeah, can he do better? Absolutely. And I think that he's gonna learn from this season, because it's all brand new. He's gonna learn from this season, and hopefully it'll be better. Hopefully numbers of COVID cases in sports will go down. But right now, he recover.
I 100% agree, and I hope the best for him. Get better soon, get back on the field, start grinding, man. That's really it.
All right, Nate. Any of
Yeah.
these topics you want to go back to?
I think we covered everything. All right, guys. Thank you so much for watching episode 8 of All You Can Talk Sports. I'm your host, Soupy. That's your other host, Mario. Be back for episode 9 tomorrow. Peace.